Good evening. Only Fox News is reporting this. Hunter Biden made millions in a no-show job working for a Ukrainian gas company that was under investigation for contract rigging and other crimes. And then Vice President Joe Biden threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid unless the lead prosecutor was fired. This is almost the same thing that Democrats want to impeach Donald Trump for. Hunter Biden is making millions of dollars is the same thing as Joe Biden making millions. Just as most seniors try and save a lot of money in order to leave it to their children, Joe Biden making millions for his son is about the same thing. You know, if you're doing that, trying to leave your children well off, this is a really strong motivation for a father. I haven't seen this other major news carriers publish this information either. They don't typically cover negative news on Democrats unless at least one other media company has reported on it. You know, not Fox News though, but or there's a lot of pressure. But usually when there's something really big, they will cover it. Now, obviously, there's exceptions. You know, Monica Lewinsky, this is how Drudge got started. Uh, but usually, if there's something big, they do report it. But this one, they're not reporting this one, and Fox News is over there reporting it. So I think this is going to be a lot of egg on the faces. It already is egg on the faces of CBS, NBC, CNN, and AP and Reuters. They're not reporting on this. In fact, later I'll show you a story where AP says there's no evidence that the Bidens did anything wrong. Well, go watch that. If you go to that webpage I was just at, and it shows video of Joe Biden saying that he promised to get that guy fired, and he got him fired, and he's doing it in a speech while he's vice president, and he's all smiling while people are clapping. Like it's some great thing that he got that guy fired. Now, what did the guy do to get fired? From an American's perspective, he was a prosecutor investigating a gas company in Ukraine that his son Hunter was working for. And it turns out today they're saying that Joe Biden's son Hunter made millions of dollars in salary off this company. That was mostly a no-show job. So obviously, this no-show job was created just to hire the son of the vice president in order to pull political strings. Clearly blatant corruption. This is good reporting by Fox. It's hard not to believe because they have a video of Joe Biden bragging about getting the guy fired. It's like how do they say that there's no evidence that AP says that? But Pence is defending Donald Trump on these calls to China and Ukraine. You know that they should investigate Joe Biden. And this is the AP story when they're saying that there's no evidence of wrongdoing by either Biden. And so down here it says Vice President Pence is defending Donald Trump, saying that it's okay for the President of the United States to call and say you should investigate this corrupt senator. But you know we have this and AP is saying there's no evidence of wrongdoing by either Joe Biden or Hunter Biden. But Biden certainly pressured the Ukrainian government to fire this prosecutor who was working for the gas company his son was working for. Why would the American government want that prosecutor fired? That's just ridiculous to think that we have some interest. This was all about his son being on the board of the company. And so if it's okay to impeach Donald Trump for this, how can the AP say that there's been no evidence of wrongdoing by either Biden? There obviously was evidence of wrongdoing because Joe Biden bragged about it, in fact. These politicians, why do they brag about this stuff? Because they think they're immune, they're invincible, they're above the law. That's what they honestly think. And now, and good for Mr. Andrew Napolitano, or former judge. It's a surprising op-ed from Fox News, Judge Napolitano, one of their opinion people over there, and he's their expert legal guy. He wrote an op-ed that says that Trump's behavior is criminal and impeachable, not just this Ukrainian matter, but also matters from the Mueller report, most notably the firing of James Comey in order to cover up the Russian investigation. It's about time other Republicans are getting with this whole law and order thing, actually. Maybe he's going to vote for Joe Walsh. So on some other, before the other, Donald Trump came out today in a speech and said that he wants China to probe the Bidens. And a lot of reporters were saying, why would he do this with all this Ukrainian stuff? Why would he go out and make a speech in order to, and ask in the speech for the Chinese to investigate the Bidens? Well, just hours later, the Washington Post reported that they have sources that say Donald Trump actually brought up Joe Biden with President Xi of China in order to try and get him to investigate them, because Hunter Biden also had some dirty scoundrel work over there in China, probably another no-show job. A lot of so, in my opinion, I would say it's obviously just a way of President Trump inoculating himself. Instead of having these stories come out about another phone call, he's going to come out and make it look like, hey, there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. I'm going to just say it in a speech. So when these stories come out, it's not going to be a big deal because people already be saying he's saying it in a speech. Why would he say that? And his answer, of course, would be, well, it's no big deal. But now on to the public school story in Chicago. A school in Chicago has been sued because the parent claims that their 9-year-old kid was thrown out of school in the 40-degree weather without a coat. And then they called the police and reported him missing. And there's the video there. Or actually, that's a photo of the video. But apparently, if you read the comments there, you'll see that a lot of people in the comments of that story are saying that he was actually just reporting on some classmates that were bullying him. And so that, I don't know what, I mean, I would think there's got to be more to it than that, but I wouldn't doubt it. This is why I've been a proponent for allowing tax deductibility of private schools for a long time. You know, because you got to have a choice. There needs to be a choice. Especially in big cities like Chicago, New York, they have no choice, and they're just horrible, horrible schools. A lot of people don't think that he'll get these teachers and the principal, which sat there and watched him sitting outside on trying to get back in, and they didn't let him in. But I would say they probably will be fired because this is, such bad press. They've got to protect the nest, and so they'll fire these people. And that's not the big story, though. That's not the story. Is really how many other people like this are in the public school system that aren't getting fired. What is it, 30% of them? So this whole case is just another example of how public school bureaucracy just doesn't work. It's going to be a huge lawsuit with a lot of money, and one of dozens that they probably have every week in Chicago. And then all the rest of the kids still getting a terrible, terrible education. So then a doctor who prescribed over 500,000 opioid doses, sentenced to 40 years. He's from Virginia, and this was an interstate crime that he was conducting in Virginia, Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, and it went for only about 2 years, which is actually rather surprising that they caught him in such a short amount of time. I think they're finally getting to realize, that FBI and other law enforcement, that this is a really bad crime, and you got to be watching for these massive opioid prescriptions. So he's 36 years old now, so he'll get out in 40 years, probably get a little good time. Maybe he'll get out by the time he's 60. But they had some examples of the people that were suffering from the addiction on this. And if you've never been an addict, well, that's good for you. But I personally smoke cigarettes, and boy, what a nightmare it was getting off of those. Facebook in Europe was in court and on Wednesday, yesterday, and was dealt a bad decision for them. I mean, not a bad decision by the court, but they lost. That is, and the court ruled that a country can order Facebook to remove defamatory content and have it removed, not just in that country, but all over the world. The, so now that they'll people will sue, and so it's the story says that it's the courts that will require that will allow this, but it's actually the laws in the country. So now the country can pass a law and say anywhere in Europe that you have to remove it all over the world, and Facebook will be obliged to do so. So now, Beijing residents, this is another story of dystopia here. They are being forced to pass a facial recognition test in order to get an internet account, which is the typical dystopia of China, that they are simply trying to crack down on freedom of speech any way they can. So they have a lot of people over there that get fake internet accounts in order to just to have freedom of speech, just so they can protest or criticize their own government. And so they want it to crack down on people doing that. And then the stock market did pretty good today, 0.5 point up, but not Tesla. Tesla dropped 6% because it missed a target of 97,477 vehicles. They actually delivered 97,000. So it was only short 47,000 vehicles, and for that they dropped 6%. And I would say that's an ultra sensitive stock. The price now of the stock is $233 for, and their Q2 quarter two earnings for 2019 were negative $2.31. So investors still have a lot of faith in Mr. Musk. And the shorts coming out for WeWork, and I was wondering about this, how many people are going to start shorting this. A lot of short sellers, but right now it's about 10% of their bonds. You know, you can't short their stock because they don't have one yet, but they do have bonds, and so people are shorting the bonds, and it's only 10% of the bonds, so it's not that bad. Sometimes you get up 30% or more of people shorting a stock or something. That's when you know it's going down. But a lot of stories out there telling how WeWork has only one or a little more than 1 year's left of money, and they're burning through it. You know, they have so much money, and when it's gone, they're going to have to go begging. And, you know, SoftBank, one of the major investment firms in WeWork, demanded the CEO's resignation and got it because, and the CEO, who really a control freak over there, reportedly says, or he went ahead and stepped down because he knew that if without SoftBank there to bankroll them, that they would run out of money and just go kaput. You know, so in SoftBank, you know, you never know. This may be an example of a gambler doubling down on a bad debt. They're going to just keep pouring money into it until it breaks even, and it may turn out bad for them. But on the other hand, if the economy keeps doing well and there's a lot of demand for this kind of company, or kind of commercial property that is, then they potentially could do really well because they've got a good track record as far as the buildings that they renovate and lease out. And it's one more story on the business. On the UK, business moral is down by quite a bit. It says the British Chamber of Commerce survey of 6,000 companies show domestic manufacturing fell at the fastest pace since 2011, that is. The article doesn't say what percentage it's down, but did say that consumer spending is up and wages are up more than more than they have been in 12 years. So that was really good.